This is the Check It Out podcast from the Moraine Valley Library. Today's February 5th, 2014, and I'm excited to be here. This is Troy Swanson, the Library Department Chair. I'm here with Michelle Furlow from Criminal Justice. Hello, Michelle.
Good afternoon, Troy.
Thanks for coming in. And we're talking about a new certificate program in your department. Could you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Criminal Justice is very excited to announce, starting in fall 2014, we will be adding to our certificate offerings with the Emergency Preparedness and Continuity Certificate. Currently, we are offering our Security Services Certificate and the Homeland Security Certificate, so the new Emergency Preparedness Certificate is going to be an excellent addition to the classes that we are already providing for our students.
And so could you tell me a little bit about what that means? I mean, I understand emergency preparedness, but what does a curriculum look like that you would take?
Well, right now we're starting with 6 courses. One course is already in existence for those of you Homeland Security fans who may have already taken Incident Command. The Incident Command course complements the Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness Certificate, but we are going to be offering 5 brand new classes with the Emergency Preparedness Certificate. An Introduction to Emergency Preparedness, a course that will introduce brand new students or practitioners into the field, the basics of what this industry has been, where it's come from, and even more exciting, where it's going. Mm-hmm. I'm thrilled that we are going to be offering a strategic planning and leadership course. One of the challenges in public safety is that everybody approaches this concept of planning a little bit differently and have been doing it differently for many years. So then how do we get these different groups to come to the table when a disaster or an emergency occurs and suddenly decide we're going to do this in a similar fashion? Mm-hmm. So we're hoping here at the community college level, Moraine Valley, to pull these different agencies together and let's start fresh. Fire, what do you do for planning? Law enforcement, what do you do? EMS, dispatch, what have you been doing? And what has worked in the past, and how do we improve that? So the strategic planning and leadership course, I think, is going to be pertinent for anyone who's going into the field or is currently in the field and they want to kind of hone their skills a bit. Then we're going to be offering continuity management. This is going to look at the private sector. So what does a business or a private entity do to continue operations and minimize any sort of disruption? A public health preparedness class, the spread of disease, which is kind of at the library's.
Right, perfect for our one book program.
Exactly, It is. It's been a really interesting opportunity to compare and how relevant public health has been to public safety, and we haven't always made that bridge. So I'm really excited about that class. And then last but certainly not least, our capstone is an exercise design and evaluation course, which is going to permit students to get their hands dirty. They're going to have the opportunity to take the skills that they've learned from the previous classes and actually run either a seminar, a tabletop drill, and get some practical experience that they can take to their job the next day or to a future employer and say, I've actually done some of these things that we do in emergency preparedness. So I'm thrilled about that.
So if you were a student working on associates in criminal justice, is this certificate, would it be on top of your associate's degree, or would it be part of it? Like, how does that work? Because I'm not clear.
Well, it could be one or the other.
Okay.
And a student that's looking to specialize in criminal justice, this may accentuate their specialty, give them sort of a specialization, and they can still go into law enforcement, courts, corrections. Right. This is really pertinent.
And still transfer for a bachelor's.
Absolutely, yep. Or it may fold into as electives in the criminal justice courses as
well. Okay.
So it can be a separate certificate to add on to an associate's or fill into some of those other elective courses.
And so it seems like as a certificate also, perhaps practitioners would also be interested in the...
Troy, I'm so glad you asked that question. Absolutely. This course, or these courses, are really ideal for young students that are looking to specialize or to get a broader sense of the public safety perspective, but also in emergency preparedness. It's, despite the fact that emergencies have happened for a long time, it's a relatively new academic and employment field. So we found that many people are put into emergency management or emergency preparedness positions without necessarily having a background in it. And they're learning pardon the pun, but trial by fire.
Right.
So, and this certificate is hoping to bring some of those practitioners to the classroom and let them work on their skills. But not only that, let's take a look at what has happened in the past and what we want to improve on in the safe environment of the classroom, so it isn't necessarily where lives are at stake or budgets are at stake or even
Right.
their job is at stake by
Right.
saying, what do we need to improve on, but rather as a perfect environment to catapult the industry as a whole forward, but ideally individual careers as well.
That's great. And so in order to have the certificate approved, people may not know this, but you don't, as a faculty member, just get to sit and come up with something, right? I mean, there's a pretty
No.
pretty involved process.
It is, actually. In this process, as we've been working on this, I've been very fortunate that I work in a wonderfully supportive department. Chris Alberts, the criminal justice chair, has been on board. Bill Barr's public service chair has been just wonderful. And Dean Macon has been, she sees the value that this is not going only to be good for the Moraine Valley student, but for our community as a whole. But yeah, this started about 2 years ago, and we've slowly
It's a
but
long
surely,
process.
it
Yeah.
is. And we were just approved by the state to move forward, and we're excited
Well,
in that regard.
congratulations.
Thank you,
That's
thank you
good.
very much.
Now, you'd mentioned some other criminal justice related stuff that we thought we'd include in the podcast. One from this fall, something
Yes.
with emergency.
Emergency Preparedness shares incident command class with Homeland Security. So that's perfect for a student that's looking to get a really broad depth of knowledge, or breadth of knowledge, I should say, in beyond criminal justice, that Homeland Security and emergency preparedness. Incident command is the structure of which communities will deal with at the state, local, all the way up to the federal level, disaster response. And in our fall class, we were able to actually convert our classroom into a emergency operations center, and we allowed the students, and I shouldn't say we allowed, they jumped at the opportunity to actually build a plan of disaster response. We set up a mock disaster, and they developed a plan how they were going to actually acquisition resources that in the mock scenario would then be delivered to the community. And what was so cool about this exercise was the students volunteered, well, why don't we actually acquisition goods and donate them? And the class found a charity drive, actually a turkey drive right around Thanksgiving.
Great.
And as the faculty, I donated some funds to get started with, and the students went literally almost well above and beyond what was expected. The amount of money that I donated, let's see what we can do with this small amount. And they went out and got donations from supermarkets. Some of them donated, their own vehicles to go pick up these turkeys, and we ended up, as Moraine Valley, donating 67 turkeys to this charity drive, and we were their
That's
largest
great. Yeah,
contributor.
nice.
And I thought the students alone did this. It was, we essentially gave them a small amount of funds to how would you acquire resources, how do you get a plan to get them, what's your contingency plan, then how would you deliver them. Thinking we would probably spend money on one turkey, and it would go to a lucky member in the classroom, and that they could take home. And they just took the ball and ran with it.
Oh, that's that's like good service learning at work,
It was,
right?
it
Yeah.
really was. And not only that, the student response I thought was phenomenal, Troy, that the students seemed to say, I liked learning about this, but to actually get up and do it and see the classroom transformed, like, it was the light bulb going off, like, oh, okay, now I get what an emergency operations center is. Now I see the point of having a plan, why you test that plan,
Right.
and why the plan never goes according to plan.
Like
So
proof of concept. for
it
some-
really
yeah,
was. It was.
yeah.
It was a beautiful thing.
That's
so.
great. Now, just could you give us an overview of the different certificates? You mentioned them a little bit earlier, but just so that we're clear on the 3 certificates that your department
Sure.
offers.
In criminal justice, we offer security services, which allows students to earn the certificate to go work in a security-related field. We also offer Homeland Security, which offers fire science, the incident command course. If you were lucky enough to see the podcast or the video from the library with Chief O'Connor, you know what a great speaker he is
Right.
and what a dynamic force he is in the classroom. So the chance to work with him in Homeland Security, and now then the emergency preparedness certificate as
Good.
well.
So a lot of options. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great. And so we have one final note. We have a special event coming up on March 25th. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, one of our instructors for the emergency preparedness and continuity certificate, Jeremy Hurst, he is the chief of the Office of Risk and Emergency Management in DuPage County. He's donating some of his time outside of the classroom to come speak in the library about public health preparedness, how it really is a whole community approach, and maybe some elements of tracking disease, tracking some of the public health threats to our community that we don't necessarily think of, and how
Yeah,
that
great.
impacts our daily lives. So I'm excited that he's joined our team to be part of the classroom, but to have this open to the community, I think we're very lucky. So
Yeah, that's
thank you
great.
to the library.
Sure. So that's March 25th, 2014 at 11 a.m. So if you listen to this podcast in the future after that event, check back on our YouTube channel because we'll post the video from that event on there to be found down the road. So is there anything else that we should know?
Other than, and anyone has questions, please feel free to get a hold of me, Michelle Furlow. I am happy to answer questions about the certificate. We've been very fortunate to have already garnered a lot of community support.
Great.
And we welcome that too. Our goal of this certificate and the goal of our program is really to be that community-centered approach that to offer for the students, but that hopefully raising just the concept of the field of emergency preparedness
Yeah.
as a whole. So
It's
I
important-
appreciate the time.
important
Troy.
stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
It is a day like today when we're out making our own plans to
Getting
get
snowed
home.
in,
and,
right?
Absolutely. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you to our listeners, and we'll see you next time.
thank you.